Okay. So hi, Miss Spencer Wise.
Hi.
You've known me for about like 4 years now, right? Throughout my high school career. Miss Spencer Wise teaches at Brighton High. She's been teaching the major science courses throughout all of the years I've known her. But what we're really after is what about I've heard that you do during your free time. What's that called? Like, is it?
I'm a member of a group called the Society for Creative Anachronisms. I call it a social group with a history problem. We're a group of people who enjoy hanging out together and have a passion for the Middle Ages.
So with that experience you have, I'm wanting to ask a few things that you have seen or worn that are based off the medieval times. This is what my capstone research paper is about, and I figured that you would be a good resource.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the compliment. Now, in truth, I particularly focus on the 1375 through the 1380s, in particular in an area of England, which, of course, in Europe, if it was happening at court, folks wanted to be doing it throughout the entirety of the empire. So, during my time period, the cote hardie was the most common form of attire. Women would actually be wearing multiple layers at that time. You would have your undergarments, and then you would have a gown, which was just a simple tunic based, usually fairly closely fitted, usually out of a linen that you would wear almost next to your skin. And then you would have a gown or your cote hardie that would actually fit over the top of your kirtle. And this would actually be what was the outer wear. Now, they actually would have additional layers that you could put on beyond that, depending upon the temperature, because temperature would range quite widely.
Yeah, I have a few like following up questions about that, and I was gonna ask about like what country and time era that you put this act and have fun with doing, and that's great. The English, the
English,
times,
Scottish in the 1370s
during
through
the
the 1390s
1370s,
mostly.
so the late medieval times. I have been interested in like the me party dress outfit. I don't know if you've heard about it or seen it, but it's just like a dress that like contrasts or is like abstract to the other side. So it's
so a party
exactly
color.
split in half, as far as one side might have a solid like color or pattern on it, and then the other side have something that can contrast or go against that.
I actually own about 3 of those particular type of outfits, and we call them party color simply because it is literally a split in half. Oftentimes they were used to show off heraldic designs, and you would actually be able to see a person's heraldry, their coat of arms, represented in the patterns that were on one side or the other of a party colored outfit.
Huh. So you'd be able to see like their coat of arms, as far as what does that mean?
Basically, individual families were bequeathed by the crown or through tradition a particular set of symbols which would identify them, and you would actually have them as your family or your particular individual coat of arms. During the Middle Ages, most people could not read or write, and therefore you would need to have some kind of a visual symbol so that you could identify somebody. Also, somebody running around a war field with a name on a plaque is not going to be anywhere near as helpful as seeing somebody's shield that's emblazoned with their coat of arms. I could look across the field and go, oh my, there's Sir Guy. And the Sir Guy is on the field, or Sir Sean is on the field, or Sir William is on the field.
Yeah.
And you would be able to tell that, not because somebody was running around with their names on a plaque, but because you could see their heraldry.
And the symbolic reasoning that go behind it. During the medieval times, I want to kind of go into more of like, because I've broken it down into other things like peasants and royalty and things like that. But as far as just like you covered what like the women would dress up as like most commonly, but what did like the men wear?
In truth, the primary difference between menswear and women's wear had to do more with length than any of the individual components. Most of the time, men and women wore very similar layers. You would have your undergarment. For men, they would have their braids and then their hose, which would cover their legs, very much like trousers do. And in some societies, they actually had pants. They would then have their kirtle, which would then be covered by a gown. Although for men, it was generally referred to as more of a tunic, because it was much shorter in length than a gown was. Although it was not at all unheard of for the more wealthy middle class folks to wear longer and longer, because it took more fabric, and fabric was expensive. And if you could afford additional fabric, well, then you must be wealthy.
Right. I came across another source saying that the more fabric you had could resemble the more wealth or money you had.
As a matter of fact, most of my gowns are 18 inches longer than I am tall.
Huh.
Because it's called conspicuous consumption. I am so wealthy, I can afford to walk on fabric.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was kind of like having a sports car. Nobody needs a sports car.
Right.
If you've got a sports car, you're using it to show off. Nobody needs to have a dress 18 inches longer than they are. It's hard to walk in. It's not practical. But it's a method of showing off your wealth.
Right. So, for looking at kind of like the royalty and where the actual royal blood flows is kind of there's a lot of symbolic fashion that goes into it, as far as maybe the fur robes and the crowns and things that go into that. What are some things that are like symbols and things that you see more behind the royalty, fashion that goes behind all that?
Well, certainly the nobility and especially the royalty wanted to show off their wealth. If you're hobnobbing with other royalty, you don't want to look like the poor cousins. You want to show that your country is the strongest, the biggest, the best, the most wealthy. So you're going to be wearing the ermine robes. You're going to be wearing the velvets. You're going to be wearing the intricate silks. You're going to be wearing the things that have been embroidered within an inch of their lives with the most expensive threads.
Yeah.
You will see much more in the way of patterning in the more noble and more royal clothing than you would in peasant's garb. When we're talking about the difference, we're talking about practical, everyday, and showing off.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, things haven't changed.
True. So to kind of wrap things up here, my thesis statement for my paper states that every piece of clothing worn by the people held meaning or symbolic reasoning during the medieval times. So just, and a lot of it had to went off of just what they portrayed to the eye as far as everyone else. So it's wealth, or how much money they had, or their class, like you were saying, their coat of arms that they have, what resembles them, and things like that. So do you support this idea, or what's your thoughts and opinions on that?
I think that people throughout time have worn the things that, one, served their needs. If you are wearing something that is showing off your heraldry, it's showing off your wealth, that's why you are doing it. Now, if you are just trying to live day to day, jeans and a t-shirt is literally going to be a very practical thing. In medieval times, jeans and a t-shirt wasn't a thing. However, a simple woolen tunic, which was easy to get a hold of and easy to make, but was the equivalent as far as a practical, everyday piece of clothing.
Yeah.
On the average person spent less time worrying about the symbolism than those who had more time due to their wealth or position.
Yeah.
I would agree with your thesis statement, but particularly focusing on the aspect of looking at the nobility, because the common everyday people, while they may have used symbols, it was moreover for religious purposes. Their paternoster, their different ways of keeping track of the spiritual times during the day, because religion was a vital part of the medieval life.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, that's great. I appreciate your knowledge on the topic and helping me out with this. So I hope you have a great rest of your day.
And you as well. Thank you.